For decades, skeptics called the story of Golgotha a myth, a poetic invention of ancient faith. But then, Israeli archaeologists struck stone beneath Jerusalem, and everything changed. Beneath layers of marble and centuries of sanctuaries lay proof no one expected: a buried quarry, fertile garden soil, and tombs dating to the very days of Christ's death. Tonight, we follow the trail from disbelief to discovery, as science uncovers what skeptics said could never exist. Jerusalem. Beneath its crowded markets and narrow stone alleys, teams of Israeli archaeologists press deeper into the earth. They are not chasing myth, they are chasing evidence. For nearly 2,000 years, believers have called this place Golgotha, the hill where Jesus was crucified. But skeptics said it was only a legend, a symbol, nothing more. Then the hammers struck limestone, and dust began to fall. What they uncovered would silence the scoffers and ignite a storm that still echoes across the world. Layers of marble gave way to older rock, jagged, hand-chiseled, and untouched since the 1st century. And inside that stone, they found proof of a forgotten quarry, patches of fertile soil, and tombs hewn for the wealthy. Every mark told the same simple truth: someone had been here before, and the story written in Scripture might not be myth after all. The headlines were swift. Reporters called it the find that rewrites the cross. Atheists were stunned. The faithful wept, because beneath the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, beneath centuries of temples, armies, and empires, lay the physical stage of history's most debated moment. But what exactly did the excavators see? How could ordinary soil challenge centuries of disbelief? And why does a cracked quarry under a crowded city still hold the power to divide science and faith? The answers are buried in stone and Scripture alike. To uncover them, we must travel back through empires, through dust, through legend, to a hill once called the Place of the Skull. Here, the truth waits in silence, daring the world to listen. Before the noise of excavators and cameras, there was only a name whispered across centuries: Golgotha. In ancient Aramaic, it means the place of the skull. Some say the hill itself looked like a bleached skull rising against the walls of Old Jerusalem. Others believe its name came from what happened there, a Roman place of execution, where the condemned were left exposed beneath the sun. 2,000 years ago, Golgotha stood just outside the city gates. That detail mattered. Roman law demanded that crucifixions be public, warnings written in human suffering. Travelers on the main road to Damascus would see the crosses and understand Rome's message: obedience or death. And in that terrible show of power, one man's death began to change how the world defined life. The Gospel writers recorded the name and the place. For centuries, pilgrims and preachers pointed to different hills, arguing which one held the true cross. Yet even amid debate, one site endured through faith: the rocky ground beneath what is now the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Empires rose, fell, and built over one another. Shrines replaced shrines. Still, the ancient name clung to that patch of earth like a memory that refused to fade. But what actually lay beneath those layers of stone? Was Golgotha truly more than legend, a landform that aligned with the precise details told in Scripture? No one knew, because no one had dared to dig deep enough. Until the 21st century. The story leaps forward to the 4th century, an age of emperors and visions. Rome, once the enemy of the cross, began to tremble under a new faith. Constantine the Great, the ruler of an empire, claimed he had seen a sign in the sky, a cross of light, before his greatest battle. Victory followed, and he declared Christianity no longer a crime, but a cause. Not long after, his mother, Helena, already nearing 80, set her heart on a dangerous mission. She would journey to Jerusalem, still scarred by conquest and time, to find the physical places spoken of in the Gospels. Her caravan crossed deserts, carrying scrolls, maps, and an unshakable belief that faith could be traced in dust and stone. When she reached the city, ruins and pagan altars covered the landscape. Roman temples stood atop older sacred sites. Yet Helena walked those hills with determination, listening to local Christians who guarded memories passed down by whisper. Where Bethlehem's cave lay, where the Mount of Olives stretched toward heaven, and finally, where a hill outside the gate once held 3 crosses. The locals pointed to a rocky rise partly buried beneath rubble. Helena ordered it cleared. Workers struck stone after stone until they reached an ancient quarry cut into the earth. She bowed her head and declared, "This is Golgotha." Around that site, she commanded builders to raise a grand church, not to enshrine a myth, but to honor a moment that changed history. It would be called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Centuries later, beneath that same church, the earth would again be disturbed, not by royal command, but by science itself, seeking proof of what Helena had only believed. Jerusalem never slept. Kingdoms rose and broke against its walls, each leaving its mark like layers of paint on sacred stone. Above the site Helena named Golgotha, time did what time always does. It built over memory. The Byzantines filled the air with incense and hymns, polishing marble until light shimmered on every column. When the Persians stormed the city, they shattered the shrines, and flames licked through the arches. Centuries later, crusaders arrived in shining armor, rebuilding what was broken, adding walls, domes, and altars. Then came Ottoman rule, which sealed the site under heavy stone and quiet supervision. Every age buried the last, both preserving and hiding the heart of the hill. To a pilgrim kneeling inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in later centuries, the world of Romans and crosses seemed impossibly distant. Few imagined what still lay below their feet: the old quarry, the untouched layers of soil, the whispers of an earlier age waiting in darkness. By modern times, the church's weight had begun to betray itself. Cracks split ancient walls, marble slabs groaned. Architects warned it could crumble if not restored. The Israeli government approved careful excavation to strengthen the foundations. The workers who entered the site thought they were saving a monument. They didn't know they were about to open a door 2,000 years wide. As flashlights swept over rough stone, one archaeologist paused. The rock wasn't natural fill. It was cut by human hands, exactly the kind used in the age of the Second Temple. What began as maintenance was about to become revelation, and the city that had watched so many empires fall would soon whisper one more hidden truth from beneath the stones. The year was ordinary, the mission routine. Stabilize the ancient Church of the Holy Sepulchre, repair its cracking foundation, secure its future. But when the first slabs were lifted, the air changed. The workers expected nothing more exciting than cement and dust. Instead, the ground revealed a different story. Beneath layers of quiet marble lay stone that hadn't felt light since the 1st century. The team moved slowly, marking every detail. Chisel lines ran uneven, yet deliberate, as if men long gone had shaped the rock with steady, tired hands. One archaeologist whispered, "This isn't random. This is a quarry." Suddenly, history and faith began to collide. Measurements matched the period of the Second Temple. The quarry appeared to have been abandoned by the time of Christ. Jagged cliffs and hollowed stone, the exact type of landscape that matched Golgotha's biblical description. News traveled fast through the worksite. Cameras flashed, voices rose, and scholars arrived within hours. Some saw coincidence, others saw confirmation. Could this explain why John's Gospel mentioned a garden nearby and a new tomb cut in the rock? For the first time, stone seemed to answer. The scientists took samples, their tools careful as surgeons. More evidence emerged, dark streaks of soil far richer than desert dust. Under microscopes, traces of olive tree pollen and grapevine fibers appeared. Jerusalem's dry earth was not supposed to support such growth beneath a church. Yet here it was, fertile and living, as if the hill had once been cultivated, a garden resting beside a quarry, just as the Gospel described. But the most startling proof was still buried deeper, sealed in tombs untouched by centuries. What they would find next would leave even unbelievers without words. Jerusalem never slept. Kingdoms rose and broke against its walls, each leaving its mark like layers of paint on sacred stone. Above the site Helena named Golgotha, time did what time always does. It built over memory. The Byzantines filled the air with incense and hymns, polishing marble until light shimmered on every column. When the Persians stormed the city, they shattered the shrines, and flames licked through the arches. Centuries later, crusaders arrived in shining armor, rebuilding what was broken, adding walls, domes, and altars. Then came Ottoman rule, which sealed the site under heavy stone and quiet supervision. Every age buried the last, both preserving and hiding the heart of the hill. To a pilgrim kneeling inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in later centuries, the world of Romans and crosses seemed impossibly distant. Few imagined what still lay below their feet: the old quarry, the untouched layers of soil, the whispers of an earlier age waiting in darkness. By modern times, the church's weight had begun to betray itself. Cracks split ancient walls, marble slabs groaned. Architects warned it could crumble if not restored. The Israeli government approved careful excavation to strengthen the foundations. The workers who entered the site thought they were saving a monument. They didn't know they were about to open a door 2,000 years wide. As flashlights swept over rough stone, one archaeologist paused. The rock wasn't natural fill. It was cut by human hands, exactly the kind used in the age of the Second Temple. What began as maintenance was about to become revelation, and the city that had watched so many empires fall would soon whisper one more hidden truth from beneath the stones. When the scientists reached the next stratum, they expected lifeless dust, what remains after centuries of stone and ash. Instead, their shovels met soil rich and dark, almost damp with memory. This wasn't quarry filler. This was living earth. Samples went under the microscope. Grain by grain, the story took shape. Olive pollen, grapevine fibers, fragments of fig and wild herbs, plants known for symbol and sustenance in the 1st century. Somehow, this quarry had transformed into a garden. The discovery startled even the skeptics among the crew. Farms didn't exist beneath city walls. Gardens weren't carved into abandoned work pits. Yet the Bible had spoken of this exact detail. The Gospel of John describes a garden near the place of crucifixion, a detail long treated as metaphor, a poetic flourish. Now science placed roots exactly where words once did. The lead archaeologist examining the samples quietly said this soil could still grow life, fertile after 2 millennia. Reporters were quick to call it coincidence. Others wondered whether it was something else entirely, echo of prophecy hidden in dirt. For believers, olive and grape had always meant restoration and covenant. For scientists, they meant agriculture. But for both, they now meant evidence. The line between faith and fact had thinned under the microscope's lens. One researcher recalled Scripture's image, the cross planted in a garden where new life would rise. The symbolism suddenly didn't seem symbolic at all. And just when the team thought the surprises were finished, scanners detected hollows in the stone walls beside the garden soil, shapes precise and man-made, tombs, dozens of them, sealed since the 1st century. Beneath the layers of garden soil, the scanners drew outlines in the bedrock, smooth, arched cavities, too straight to be natural. When the archaeologists brushed away the dust, the shapes emerged with unnerving clarity. Tombs. They were the same type carved for Jerusalem's wealthy families in the 1st century, cut directly into limestone, with narrow entrances and inner chambers large enough for burial benches. Carbon tests confirmed the age. The layout matched those found in areas where noblemen were buried. And suddenly, an old prophecy found footing. Isaiah had written of a man with the wicked in death, yet buried among the rich. The connection was impossible to ignore. This hill, once a quarry and then a garden, also held a wealthy man's tomb, exactly as described in the record of Jesus' burial. At the center of it all stood the structure known today as the edicula, built by generations to protect the spot long believed to be Christ's own resting place. When restoration workers lifted its marble casing, they discovered something that had not been seen since Constantine's era: a circular base of ancient stone, matching descriptions from Helena's 4th century builders. The lines of history aligned again, like stars finding their orbit. Cameras captured the moment. Scientists recorded measurements and samples. What they found weren't relics of superstition, but coordinates of belief preserved in geology. Even members of the team who came with doubt fell silent among the tomb shadows. One archaeologist later said it felt as though the stones themselves were repeating the gospel. But evidence alone was never the whole story. The real tension would rise above the data, in the fierce debate that erupted between scholars of science and defenders of faith.